Hello and welcome to the Crown Lane podcast, Crown Lane on the Record. We're on episode 13 now, so congratulations if you made it this far in the series. Our last two are about accessibility in the industry. Really, really interesting. If you haven't listened to them, please check them out. But today, what are we talking about? We're talking about mastering. And who other could we get in than the master of mastering at Crown Lane? We've got Bill Sherrington. Bill, hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So my first question that I've written here, who is Bill?
Okay, well,
Bill, who is you?
Bill is a musician. I've been playing in bands since the 70s. Play guitar, bass and sing. For the last nearly 20 years, I've been working at Crown Lane Studio, initially as the recording engineer and sort of production, occasional sessions. But for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been concentrating on the mastering process.
Yes, because I believe that there was some sort of attempt at retiring from Crown Lane.
That's right.
And either through us or through you, it didn't work out very well.
That's okay.
Because you are our mastering engineer, of which we're very grateful, and you've just done so many projects. And everyone's always very happy at the end of it, which is always a good sign. So today, basically, we're talking about mastering, going into a bit of depth of what it is, why do we do it, is it still relevant? Why would somebody want something mastered if they're recording a project at Crown Lane? So all very important questions to ask. But yes, thank you very much for coming on and answering these questions for us. So the first question really is quite a broad one, but what is mastering?
Well, if I tell you that, I'd have to kill you. I'm sorry. So
just so you know, Bill did that so straight face. I was like, yes. Okay.
So as long as you don't tell anyone.
Okay, I won't tell anyone.
I'll continue.
The podcast might.
Yes. Mastering is a process that's done after a track has been recorded, it's been mixed, it's had some production on it. And it's the stage between the final recording and mix that the client is happy with, and then going on to the distributor, which these days is Spotify, Apple Music, could be still CD, occasionally vinyl. But it's a little process that sits in between those two things that prepares it for that media, basically.
Because we always, at the studio, for any new clients who are coming in or anyone who's recording for the first time maybe, we often say that we're pretty much here for the entire process if they want us to be. So from the pre-production to the production sessions, the recording, the mixing, mastering. And there are sometimes people who maybe people of a younger generation who aren't overly sure on what it is. So that's a really nice clarification that it's that sort of final stage really. And we always see it as kind of like the final layer of paint that you'd put on a beautiful wall that you might have just painted.
Indeed.
That you want to treat that section of the process as kind of the final part, really. Yeah. It can be broken and remastered, can't it? But that's kind of the...
Yes,
that's where we want to get to. So you mentioned about it after the mixing stage.
Yes.
What do you see as like, are there any similarities between the mixing and the mastering there? Are there any sort of manipulations that you'd make? Is it a creative process, the mastering, or is it purely sort of mathematical?
No, it's definitely creative. You can make some slight changes to the way individual instruments and that are mixed in a sense, but you're not dealing with the multiple tracks, bass, drums, guitar, vocals. You're only dealing with the stereo file that's been mixed. There are little tools where you could possibly bring the vocal out a little bit more if it was a little bit sat back in the mix. But generally speaking, you're not trying to alter the mix because the client has generally been signed that off.
Yeah,
they're happy with it, so you don't want to mess with that too much. More of the process is you are trying to glue everything together. They often use that term in mastering. They might use a little bit of compression on the track to avoid anything sort of jumping out when you're listening to it. It sort of makes things all part of one thing, glues it all together. And the tools we can use, we don't have to compress the whole frequency range. You can choose which bits to do. Multi-band compression, that's called. The other thing I often do is have a look at the EQ of the final track. And sometimes something I like to do is to warm up the low end. So we're talking about sort of 50, 60 hertz up to probably about 300. And that's where you get the kind of warmth of like the bass guitar, for instance, or a low synthesizer and kick drum. And sometimes just adding a little bit of warmth in the bottom there adds a little something to the track and just makes it, particularly if a bass guitar comes in later in the track, you suddenly hear that, oh, there it is. It's kind of lovely and warm. And that's not always the case when it's been mixed. Generally, when it's been mixed at Crown Lane Studio, I have less to do on that. But sometimes we get tracks in from people that have recorded elsewhere. They may have recorded at home, and they may have used speakers that are not full range. At the studio here, we have these lovely Genelec speakers with a sub as well. So we get the full range of the EQ. And because of that, we can tell if something's a little bit missing, perhaps down that low end.
And we've had it quite often, especially when people from outside of the sort of Crown Lane community who haven't recorded here, who then ask us just for the mastering process, will then often give notes beforehand saying, album references.
Yes.
Is that a help or a hindrance for you as an engineer?
No, it can be a help. A single track reference usually is helpful.
Yeah.
Because actually I can analyse, for instance, the EQ curve of that track. And also get a sense of how sort of punchy it is, depending on the type of music. Obviously, something like EDM track would be megally punchy and also very compressed, and not much in the way of dynamic changes in those sort of tracks. But then at the other end of the scale, maybe a jazz track or even a classical thing, you've got a vast difference between the highs and lows volumes, etc. And you wouldn't want to compress them into a kind of, a middle section. You want to have all that dynamic range. But having a reference track does give me an idea of what they're looking at. But of course, the music itself also gives you an idea of the style. Yeah. In the back of my head, I've got tracks. In fact, I've got a list of tracks that I can look at when I think, oh yeah, that's what they're looking for. And I would go in and have a listen to that and try and do whatever tweaks necessary. And it is a minor tweaks, it's not a major thing that we're doing in mastering, but it is a minor thing just to make it, if you just wash your car, it's the polish afterwards, it just gives it that great sound. And crucially as well, you put it to a level that is suitable for Spotify and Apple and whatever you're going to.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually, with that sort of final format, where it lands. Are there different processes that need to be done? So if someone said, I'll give you an example, we've got an artist at the moment who we just recorded their album, and he obviously needs it to go onto the streaming services, but really wants to get, I think, about 200 vinyls pressed of this album as well. So do you have to approach that differently? Do you have to make separate masters for the project file? Yeah,
I would do. All the streaming platforms, they have a limit, I call it normalization, where no matter how loud you make a track in the end, and you can make it very loud, the louder you go, the more compressed it is, as I was talking about earlier, but they will always reduce it to whatever their level is. And it's the same with radio and TV, actually. Vinyl is slightly different, and so is CD. With CDs, there was a time when CDs first came out, there was a thing called the loudness wars, in that everyone wanted their CD louder than everybody else's. So it sounds more impressive when you hear it, together. And that was possible on CDs. But again, if it goes onto radio, then it eventually goes on to the streaming services, then again, they're going to shut it down. So that's kind of gone away a little bit, the loudness wars. Yeah. There are some circumstances, if music is specifically to be played in a club, then you probably would have it louder than other types. Vinyl is slightly different, and that's just a purely physical thing, is that if you have your track too loud on a piece of vinyl, the needle can jump out of the tracks.
Oh, right.
Particularly when it gets to the middle, because they're smaller in the middle.
Yeah.
So there is a recommended level that you don't go beyond for vinyl. And for other services, I would do it louder than that. So vinyl would, be a separate master compared to other things.
Thank you for that. Is there I guess my next question is one that might be asked by people who perhaps aren't part of the industry. Again, they've never done this kind of thing before. Is it still a necessary process in the digital age that we live in? Is it someone might look at a project and think, well, maybe I'll just not get it mastered at the end and just deal with the desk mix that's done? And what would your sort of response to that? Is it still a relevant process within music these days?
Yeah, it is still a relevant process. And anything you hear professionally on, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify will have been mastered.
Yeah.
It's still very relevant today. In theory, you could upload your stuff to them without it being mastered, but I think it would be a detriment to the music and to the track. It just prepares it better for whatever the distributor is, basically.
Right, okay. Great. Well, that kind of covers our part one. So we're going to be back after the break. We're going to be talking about remastering and what does the future look like with AI. We'll be back in one moment.
Passionate about podcasts and sound? Dive into the Sculpt Mixing course. Developed over 2 years, this online course delivers top-tier mixing tips straight from our bustling commercial studio. With guided videos, downloadable audio content, and a comprehensive handbook, you'll elevate your skills at your own pace. Visit crownlanestudio.co.uk/education and enter podcast special at checkout for an exclusive 30% discount. At Crown Lane, we help you sound better. Download now and let's get back to the episode.
That was a horrible noise that I just made. Welcome back to the episode. We're talking with Bill all about things to do with mastering. And my next question, Bill, is about remastering. So, music fans who may be looking through Spotify and all of a sudden you go to an album and it says a remastered version and it has to say it next to it and it's been remastered as well. Why do bands or artists or labels then end up remastering works?
There's a couple of main reasons. It's often albums and music that's been released many decades ago. So, for instance, pre-2000s, maybe late 90s, before CDs came into fruition, everything would have been done for vinyl. So, as I said earlier, you've got that limit to the amount of loudness that the vinyl allows. So some bands would consider remastering so that they can make it louder. They can also adjust it a little bit if they weren't perhaps totally happy with how it came out originally. They can make some changes to the EQ, make it a little bit brighter, add that little bit of bass, as I was saying earlier. So that's one reason. The other reason was because of CDs. For instance, the Beatles remastered virtually everything they did in, I think it was 2009, for CDs. And obviously some of their very early stuff in the early 60s would have been mono as well. But they remastered them as well. They did a weird process when stereo first came out, not to do with mastering actually, but it might be interesting for our listeners, in that they created stereo tracks from the original mono tracks. But if you ever listen to them, you'll hear, for instance, the drums in your right ear and everything else in your left ear. Or one vocal in one side and everything else on the other. So that's just how they had to do it at the time.
I've mentioned this before, one of our earlier episodes with Chris, about when I was quite young and when I really realised what stereo was. I must have been like 10 or 11. And I was listening to a David Bowie track and one of my headphones had gone. And then all of a sudden I was like, what is this? All these harmonies that I'd never noticed before. Like I didn't have the lead vocal. And as well, having a set of headphones gone when you're listening to early Beatles stuff and you've just got Ringo, basically. That is it.
It's weird, isn't it?
So with that remastering process, is there a line that's drawn? Because presumably there's a difference there between remix and remaster as well. Do you think that many bands, when they're doing that remastering process, would bother touching the mix at all, or is it just purely the mastering side?
They could. They'd have to go back to the original multi-track, but not necessarily, no.
Okay.
There's enough you can do in the mastering process. One thing I didn't mention is another tool you can use is to do with stereo width. And it can actually, it's a psychoacoustic, effect, but it means that the track actually sounds wider than it did originally.
Well, okay.
Which can sometimes give extra space to individual instruments that are panned differently across the spectrum. That's something I use fairly regularly as well. You'll hear it most in headphones, of course, but also you do hear it in speakers. And it's just as if it's gone from the middle to the outside. And that's a process that could be done in remastering as well.
I was reading up on a forum recently about remastering, and that there are so many albums that are remastered that for your average listener listening through a kitchen speaker or your headphones, you would actually never know the difference. And it was only when you get really, really expensive gear and monitoring gear and amazing sound systems, for at stadiums when you're playing back music, that's where the difference comes in. But actually for a normal listener, there might not be too much that you'd notice on a mid-range speaker.
No, and it's weird the way hi-fi has gone, because it virtually has gone.
Yeah.
People are just listening on sound bars.
Yeah.
Maybe just through their TV or a little home pod type thing, which for the size of them, they sound great, but they're not hi-fi.
I know. I mean, that's another thing that we've discussed before about with technology, that it's not always the best thing that is the most commercially successful. It's the easiest thing, or the thing that looks the nicest or is the best value for money. That wins. The most common tech that we all have is nowhere near what the best thing on the market is.
No, that's true.
I think about so you saying about hi-fi, I still have my Sony hi-fi stack at home, and I love it.
Yeah, me too.
With all of my heart.
Yeah.
But then, in my kitchen, I have a smart speaker as well, and I normally just run everything through that, and it gets the job done, doesn't it?
Right,
yeah. So that's it.
Yeah,
isn't
and
it?
if you're just wandering around, the traditional hi-fi setup, you'd be sat in the middle of the speakers.
Yeah.
And you put your album on, you put the needle down, you'd go and sit down, and you'd listen to that whole thing.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be wandering around, making a cup of tea and all that sort of stuff.
Listening to the Crown Lane podcast.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, it has changed a bit, but if you've got a chance to listen with some decent headphones or something like that, you will hear the difference.
Yeah, great. This next part, we don't like talking about AI too much. Not for the obvious reason, but only because we don't want to sound dated, because AI changes so fast. So there's a disclaimer now that this is being recorded in May 2025. Some of the things that we talk about may be completely irrelevant tomorrow or even in a few months' time. But we can't not talk about the progress of AI with mastering as well. So my question is, what does the future look like with AI mastering? I know that it exists as it stands at the moment. You're probably the same as me with your algorithm, the algorithm, how it treats you because you're a musician. You'll probably see loads of targeted ads all the time. I do. You want to get your music mastered for $12.99? It's an AI thing that you just send it off. So should people be skeptical of that? Should people not fall for tricks of, super duper cheap AI run mastering?
Yeah, definitely.
Where do we stand on that issue?
Well, we've got some software that can analyse a track, and it can give an approximation of what that style of music should sound like in theory.
Yeah.
But I would never use that, because music is a human thing.
Yeah.
It's you can run your algorithms and all that sort of stuff, and like AI today, you can write a track in a style of something, but it never sounds right.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it ever will, no matter how clever it gets.
Yeah.
You always need a pair of ears that, as you say, has listened to a lot of music. As a musician for many years, I'm very familiar with lots of different styles.
This is starting to sound like an interview. Why should you keep your job?
Yes. I think I'm the best man for the job. No, I wasn't trying to big myself up. But
No, I completely agree. And what you're saying is right. And as well, there is such a human element to, it's all a human element to music. But, to give a really good example is that, we've had it before where something has been, either mixed or mastered, and then the clients come and say, "Oh, I love it, I absolutely love it. However, maybe there might be something that could we try this instead?" We say, "Of course," and then we'll redo it, and then we'll have that conversation.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't beat that.
No, absolutely not.
Audiophiles chatting about what sounds best and tweaking and trying things in a collaborative way, and it seems mad to then your collaborator is a piece of hardware or software.
Well, absolutely. You've spent all this time, getting your tracks together, and he's probably spent quite a lot of money. If you're making an album, you have to
Yeah.
spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you don't want to risk some bot finishing it off for you.
Okay, fine. You can keep your job.
Good.
Good. You can't retire again. Brill. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for that, Bill. We've started
welcome.
a new thing now, which is the Crown Lane questionnaire. You can't escape it.
Oh,
I'm very sorry about this. You'll be the fourth person to take it on
this
now.
is an interview after all.
Yeah. The Crown Lane questionnaire. We'll keep this as quick as we possibly can.
Okay.
Are you ready, Bill?
I'm ready.
You have no idea what's about to come.
I don't.
And the first question, or it could be written for you, this one. Question number 1, quick fire. Which is your favourite format to listen to music in, as in vinyl, cassette, CD, radio, whatever it might be? What's your
CD.
CD?
Yeah. Although most of the stuff I listen to these days is on the computer.
Well, yeah, like most people.
Yeah.
But I said quick fire, but I'm going to say why, actually. Why CD?
I think it's got the best fidelity, to be honest. I do. I mean, I like vinyl, but I got rid of my record deck decades ago, so so I've not carried on with that.
I never got rid of my vinyls, but I got rid of all my CDs.
I've also done that.
Okay.
Because I put them all on my computer, yeah.
So you like listening to them, you just don't have any.
Yeah, I just don't have any.
Charity shop. Okay, question 2. As a musician, when you're playing, do you prefer to be playing in the studio or do you prefer to be playing on stage?
Oh, on stage, live.
Fair enough. The best gig you've ever been to?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tough one.
That
but
is very hard. I'll go recent. Jacob Collier at the O2.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely incredible.
Amazing. Strange question. The best gig that you've never been to. So think about a gig, any from history you think, I wish I would have been. Okay, that didn't take long. Which one?
69.
69, of course. Yeah, not 99.
No.
With, it was Limp Bizkit. No, not that one. Favourite instrument to listen to, as in it's in the same room as you, you're listening to it being played?
Probably guitar, because that's my main thing.
Acoustic, electric?
Acoustic, yeah. That's what I play at home,
Yeah.
mostly.
Least favourite instrument to listen to?
Oboe?
The poor oboe players.
Well, anything that's out of tune. let's say that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Which album is the best to give to someone as a gift? Imagine a CD. You've wrapped it up. You've given it to someone, and you think this is a really good gift to give someone.
Oh, my goodness. That's too hard.
Okay, one of the best.
All right, well, one of my favourites is by Little Feat. It was made in the 70s and late 70s, I think. And it's called The Last Record Album.
Right, okay.
And it's absolutely incredible.
Oh, well, I'm going to check that out. You can give it to me as a gift.
Yeah.
Send me the link on
will,
Spotify.
yeah.
That's how you gift these days. And last question, bit of a soppy one. Sum up what music means to you in one sentence.
Oh, wow. It means everything to me. It's been part of my life since I was playing, since I was 14. I go to loads of gigs still. I recently stopped playing with a band, but only because they split up last year, a function band. So I'll be happy to carry on for the rest of my days. Yeah.
Oh, I like it. Very nice. Right, well, before we go, are there any recommendations when we're talking about the world of music and sound and venues and bands?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Have you got anything to recommend to anyone?
Yeah, let me give you a few bands. Vincent Garcia, who's an incredible bass player, but plays in a sort of really funky sort of band. Matteo Mancuso, guitarist, who's one of these guys that can play anything. And it's slightly unusual in that he doesn't use a pick. He uses all four fingers on his right hand,
Oh, nice.
like a classical guitarist. But he'll do the cleverest, fastest, sweepiest sort of stuff as well.
The sweepiest. Yeah,
that is a technical term. Venues, there's a great venue in Sutton in Surrey called the Sound Lounge.
Oh, yes.
And they get some great bands there, right from people that have just started. But in fact, I'm going to see, who am I going to see? I saw some of 10cc, the
cool.
big band from
I
the
love
70s
10cc.
there, in there. I'm going to see a guy called Robbie Robertson, who's a guitarist that's played with virtually everybody. He was in the Pretenders. He's played with McCartney. There's a massive list. He's got his own band there, so I'll know that's going to be mega. So they do get some really, really great stuff and lots of variety as well, all kinds of music. And they're really lovely people.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they? Yeah, they're really good. I've been to a gig there watching Shea Lily.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And she was just brilliant there.
Yeah.
It is a really, really
She
nice
used to work
place.
there, I think, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, yeah. Brill. Okay, well, the recommendation from me is a plug for the studio, really, and it's that our second season of Crown Lane Live is all being edited as we speak. And now, this was my recommendation from the last one, and then our lovely Chris has had some holiday, so he didn't get on with the editing. But it's all being done as we speak, so that's coming out. We've been shown some of the footage from it. It just looks so good. We were so in the moment with it that I didn't really appreciate what it looked like, and now looking at it afterwards, kind of went in holding our breath like, was it as good as we thought? And it just looks so beautiful.
I was here for a couple of those, the Tara Minton. And,
those are the ones that we've been looking through at the moment. My word, they're so good. So that's my recommendation. Keep your eyes peeled on our socials for that. But otherwise, I'm going to say the same thing I said last time as well. John will be back next time. He wasn't this time. I'm glad he wasn't. Thanks, Bill. But he should be back in the next episode. But otherwise, thanks for tuning in. See you next month. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Goodbye.